Alrighty, welcome to another episode of Tyler's Yarns. Today we got a guest with me. He's a good friend of mine. We've been friends for about 5 years. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Ash, and I've been doing Spell Out Vintage since officially 2015, but it's been like before that.
When did we meet? We must have met at one of the markets when I first started. So we've been going for about 5 years.
Yeah,
so,
I remember 100%.
Oh no, four and a bit now.
Yeah, I remember exactly when we met. Would have been, I think, maybe 2017.
Oh yeah,
something like maybe the end of 2017, something like that. A market in there.
The first market we ever did, and we're selling t-shirts for like $20.
Nah, I think I missed the first ever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bonnie had invited me to that first 91 vintage market in. Where was it? It was in a storefront somewhere.
Yeah, because that's the one we went to. I thought we met you there.
Nah, I couldn't make that one. So she's like, cool, I'll invite you to the next one. I was like, no problem. So then I got invited to the first one. That was at
the Evelyn.
At the Evelyn. Yeah. And I remember you across from me, you were wearing like your Tommy Hilfiger overalls
with the furry hat. I remember that. The
and you
hat or whatever.
And you had like grandma sweaters or something like that. And I was like really confused of like why you were selling that.
We got stung on those. That's a good story actually. Those grandma sweaters.
They weren't bad.
Yeah, to put it in perspective. So when we first started, we had these grandma sweaters that we got because we didn't hand pick them. So we just got a box of random branded sweaters they were. But yeah, we got stung on them and then we had to sell them at this market for a loss. But that was a thing that we learned from.
Yeah, I guess the word sweaters got mixed up. What you were getting, right?
Yeah, we thought a crew neck.
Or jumper, whatever you want to call it, right?
All right. So one good thing that happened to you this week? What's one good thing?
So I'd been doing jiu-jitsu for like 11 years, and last week 5 of the guys that I pretty much started with, they got their black belt, which is a massive journey. So the gym's been...
How long have they been going for?
I've been doing about 10 or 11 years, and maybe they've been like a year longer than me, maybe like 12 years, 12 years.
Shit, that's long.
And they're like, my gym that I go to is only ever given out before that 6 ever black belts. So now it's a total of 11 black belts. Shit. You've got like 300 students. So
are you close?
I guess my next one is that. My next belt is that.
But like how long is that going to be, you know?
I don't know. I don't even want to estimate it. It could be years. It could be longer. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really want it. It's a weird thing to accept. Because
once it's done, then it's like, oh, what do I do now?
Just
jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. No, there's still a heap more to do, trust me.
You got to learn a lot. I hear a lot of good things about jiu-jitsu actually. Just like teaches you to be like present and just like, I know, respect as well.
Yeah, I guess, yes, I could say that. It's probably like the only place in the world that
because like you're no different to me when I'm stepping in a dojo or whatever they're called.
No, 100, just in the gym, onto the mat. Like our gym, it's got maybe somewhere like 200 to 300 students. I mean, they're not all there at the same time, but we got everything from like carpenters and electricians to like heart surgeon, lawyers.
Everyone,
like anyone and everything in between. It's a great networking, like
especially for you, eh?
Yeah, it's like, I always
buy my t-shirts.
No one in the gym like really knows. I mean, people know I do, but I don't put anything on my personal page. I've never like crossed my personal and my business page.
Yeah,
I never wanted people to feel like that they had to like
obligated,
my page, or
like your post,
like my post,
bring it up.
Yeah, and selling shit to friends is like. I don't want to deal with that. But then something goes
wrong, it's not good.
You know what?
We've been pretty good with selling things to friends. Yeah, like have you had a few bad experiences?
The one time, like in the 5 years I've been sending stuff out, like through the post.
Yeah,
my wife's work friend bought a Champion jumper. This was like 4 years ago, and she bought it. She paid for shipping. I sent it out. I did like a bit of a discount, whatever. Yeah. And it's the only thing that ever got lost. And it was such a pain just to chase it up. And I just gave her the money back because it was like a friend of my wife's and like really nice. She did nothing wrong. It wasn't her fault.
Yeah, it was just a big hassle.
Yeah,
and the one order you didn't want it to be your friend, you know.
Yeah, and I've already taken a lot less money on it than like I normally would, which is fine.
Yeah, but it's like
usually. The best thing is like either my little cousin would come help me, like, and I'd always offer him something. He never really took anything from me. And my mate Petey, who's always with me, and I think usually he'll pick up something. I'll be like, I'm like, take it.
Yeah.
So like in those situations, I don't mind. But
when they're sort of like very close to you, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I've just always been like, my personal page is I don't even post anything on there really, but like, and I don't even really post anything on my business page much anymore. But I just always kept them separate.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that later. But one good thing that happened to me was this week is getting on a podcast with you, finally seeing you after probably like 2 years.
No, I think it's about a year.
Yeah, probably like a year was the last time.
Yeah, well,
I think you came to the
store.
Yeah.
And then you and Grace came with that market where I was at, which was a year ago, last May.
We always have good chats, so I was like, it's good to get you on as well. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting podcast.
I have a lot of
talk too much shit, which is good. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about your journey. Your journey of Spell Out, how you started, how you got into vintage.
All right, cool. That's kind of, I guess, easy, but I'll speak a lot.
Break it down.
It started when I got into sneakers like heavily 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So like right at, some of the best shoes and releases that are now huge today. A lot of that stuff got jumped in that kind of era. So
do you want to spin some of the shoes you had? Because I know some of them. But.
Like I had a lot of the biggest things now are like I had a lot of Nike SBs, which are like, huge. And Dunks, right? Which are massive. And for years, even like 5 years ago, you couldn't even give them away. Like I sold a pair of
those used to be still on the shelves of the skate shops with all the SBs.
Yeah.
Back even 3 years ago.
Some of the stuff that like sat on shelves at that point in time, back in 2005, and now like worth a fortune, like stuff that got marked down and reduced.
Yeah.
Shit back then that
they go to the what are the second stores and stuff like that.
Nike. There used to be a Nike outlet on Smith Street in Collingwood, and they used to get like so much crap. But even that, nobody wanted it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got into sneakers there, and then that kind of like drew me into like, there was the whole thing about like matching your hat, and like your t-shirt and everything to your sneakers, and then so I got heavily into like collecting hats, and then
what sort of time frame was this?
This is probably like I reckon from 2004 to like heavily to about 2009.
Yeah,
right during that period, and when I was a kid, Starter was the biggest brand. Like for me, Starter was the biggest brand. It was like the supreme of like when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, the Starter back then would have been on the snapback buzz. So when it would have been pretty huge.
100%. So it started, me getting back into Starter started with the snapbacks.
Yeah.
But then the Starter jackets.
Yes, big puffer jackets, eh?
Yeah. So that was like my first entry into like really starting to like, I want to start a jacket.
Yeah.
But
big embroidery on the back, like most of those ones. Good embroidery on the front. Probably the best quality jacket we even get. Like any vintage jacket that Starter. Best quality.
The satin jackets are crazy. But the only way to get those jackets was to buy them secondhand.
Yeah. So
I never really had a lot of secondhand. Like I never bought any secondhand stuff, right? Yeah. Like,
what were the brands back then that you'd like fuck with, like sort of skate shop vibes or
I used to skate a bit, like when I was around that time actually.
Yeah.
Like maybe a little bit like, in the earlier 2000s I used to skate. So like a lot of skate brand stuff. And then there was like a lot of these streetwear brands that came in. So like at that time where like, Supreme was always on the rise, so I wouldn't count that.
But Supreme's been on the rise, like Palace and Supreme have been probably on the same trajectory for...
To be honest, I don't know much about the history of Palace. Like, I know more about it now than I did back then. I don't know if it was even around then.
The Palace used to be stocked in, Supreme used to be stocked in all the Palace stores back in the day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, like, that's how they first, like, grew up together, which is cool.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest brands I would think was like, the Hundreds. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, they were getting big at that time. And there was this like kind of streetwear explosion at that time.
Yeah.
Like a brand called Crooks and Castle.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was just lots of these small streetwear brands that a lot of them got their start creating clothes that match shoes.
Yeah.
So you'd get a Jordan release of a shoe because they were the biggest
and
releases.
back then would have been a lot harder to get the shoe, or like a lot of people would actually wear their shoes.
Everybody wore their shoes.
Yeah.
I want to say that they
And it would have
did.
been, you'd be lining up for shoes. You wouldn't be on.
Yeah, lined up for shoes, 100%. I think that if you pretty much lined up, in 99% of the cases, you got a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
I don't think there were too many times. I don't think I ever lined up and didn't get a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
There might have been one where I had to take like half a size smaller.
Yeah.
That was like the worst case scenario. But at that stage, I was spending so much money in Foot Lockers that I became really good friends with the guys in the High Point store. So this is like 2005, 2006. And I had one of the guys' bank details, and he let me deposit the money in there and buy the shoes at his stuff.
Yeah.
I'd get the 30% staff discount.
Yeah,
and then put my shoes away.
Because they'd only get like a certain amount of, like even now, like up their store and stuff, only get a certain amount of like Yeezys or like a certain amount of stores. So back then it probably would have been like 30 shoes a piece or whatever, you know?
I'm pretty sure.
Foot Locker.
It's still similar now. So they run on a size run, right?
Yeah.
So they might get like 10 size 10s, 5 size 12s, I don't know, whatever. I'm just making it up, yeah? So I just think that there was less of a demand. Like, yeah, I think people back then were happy to miss something because they're like, the next thing's coming, and the hype around like, yo, I need to get this and only this.
Do you reckon it was bigger hype because like, because like now it's like there's a new release 2 times a week now. Then back then it would have been like, every 3 weeks.
Yeah, we're talking like maybe once a month.
Yeah, or once a month.
Yeah, so like the Jordans were the biggest things back then that I remember, and maybe they would be like once a month, maybe every second month. Like there'd always be a Christmas Jordan, which still continues today. And there's certain times of the year you would get a Jordan retro, depending on what that shoe was, and of course
how good it was, you know.
Yeah, and like of course there was always like people wanting those shoes, but I don't think like there wasn't that crazy hype online. Yeah. So there was no Instagram. There was no, I don't know, maybe we had MySpace, but like people weren't like posting MSN. I used to post heaps on the like Sneaker Freaker forum.
Oh yeah.
So like back in the early 2000s.
Because back then it was all like blogs and
like,
big blogs were coming up.
Yeah, it was like Nike. It was Nike Talk, the forum on Nike Talk, which I used to read like daily. And like the Sneaker Freaker, and especially it was cool because they were actually a worldwide brand, but based out of Melbourne.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Oh, you know that? Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That magazine was started here in Melbourne.
Because even now they got thousands of followers, like hundreds of millions of followers on Instagram at the moment.
They're like one of the biggest brands in sneakers. Yeah, even though they don't sell sneakers,
they sell content.
Yeah,
which is cool.
So like that through sneakers anyway, I got into like tracking down starter stuff. Yeah. And then during 2012, I should know that date, I met my wife. And she works in the fashion industry. Yeah. And she came to Melbourne to work and live, and she would once we got together, she'd show me like lots of op shops and take me to like different places. Yeah. Stuff I never really went into, like looking for clothes. Like that was a new world to me.
Yeah, the op shop vibe.
Yeah, I'd go to garage sales because I always like collecting toys. Yeah. So I'd go to like garage sales, but I never went into op shops. And like where I live in Brunswick is like on Sydney Road. It's like full of it's like we got the original biggest savers I think in Melbourne. It's like,
and there's like 20 op shops on that street, man.
Yeah, and Retro Star Vintage had the original factory there, which I used to go to like all. She was the one. She took me to. We went to like the original Retro Star like $5 and $10 sales, which
I'm still going to today. That's 10 years.
But it's completely different. The stuff I used to get,
well, crazy.
It wasn't till like the end. Oh, so probably like 2000, and we started going to those sales not in 2012, but like 2014. Yeah. Right. And it wasn't, I stopped going in like 2016 because then they started to get like, as vintage got more popular, they started to get like crazy busy.
Did you learn a lot through that period, like the 2012 to 2014 about vintage? Because obviously from probably my standpoint, I was like self-taught all myself how to retail, look at tags, identify vintage and stuff. Did you learn a lot through that 2 years?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've always been like an internet nerd. You know what I mean? Like diving into forums and just reading. Like I don't even sleep a lot now. Like I'm still online all night, just reading and watching stuff. So that's how I learned about vintage. And like you buy stuff and then a week later you buy something else. And I'm like, you know, at that stage I was buying heaps of Tommy, right?
Yeah,
because Tommy and Polo were crazy.
Pumping.
So I would be buying that and I'd be looking at tags going, oh, why is this tag different to this tag? Or like trying to date something to like, so you got to get online and you got to find it. And like, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of people or nobody I knew that I could like message. Now I could just message you or Ali or someone and be like, hey, what's the go with this?
Or what's this tag? Or like, what do you reckon about this? Like even me and Ali at the moment go back and forth like with, what do you reckon about this? What do you reckon about pricing this? Because some other Nike tees can be a lot rarer than others as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you find that with anything, right? Like a certain like Tommy, print or...
Yeah, depending on what it is.
From a certain tour or whatever it is. So you
learn a lot through that period.
Learn a lot through that period. Like my wife keeps introducing me to like thrift shopping, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just get addicted to that really. And I start going like every day, pretty much after work, off the tram. And then in 2015, we do our first trip to the US.
Yeah.
And, or together, because we'd both been separately, but together. And we pretty much like spent the whole time in the US in 2015, like shopping everywhere we could that had the word vintage name on it.
Did you know the Rose Bowl back then and the Melrose?
Yes, we did, because my wife at that stage would go to Melrose Trading Post for work, to shop there for work.
Like inspiration.
Yeah. So she'd bought me stuff from like Melrose and that. Yeah. But the time we went, it didn't like, we didn't stay in LA that time, but the Rose Bowl wasn't on when we were there.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of shopping in New York, which people would assume is like really expensive. But if you knew where to shop, like you would pay more than here, but you could still make good money from it.
Yeah, good money.
So we did the original Brunswick Flea, and in that Brunswick Flea, I found some of the craziest t-shirts.
Did the Brunswick Flea?
Sorry, Brunswick. What am I saying? The Brooklyn. No, Brooklyn. Sorry, I can't know what I'm saying. I live in Brunswick.
Yeah.
Is the Brooklyn Flea? We were like shopping in there and we bought like heaps of cool t-shirts, like $5 US.
Yeah.
Like my wife's got this awesome Jay-Z, Mary J. Blige, like tour tee. It was $5 in like a double XL size.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all right. It's a 2006 tour t-shirt.
Yeah. But it's going to increase in value.
It looks nuts.
Probably like now. Have you still got it?
Yeah.
Like probably because it's going to get into the point where it starts being like proper vintage, you know.
I bought her a Kobe Championship T-shirt that she still wears. I had like those LA Lakers. I know you've got a lot of the sweaters, like the champion ones.
Yeah.
I got the T-shirt, but it's got like Kobe on it. It's got all the guys like a rap T-shirt on it,
cool.
and the big back print.
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah, I think I know. Yeah, and then know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a few.
How much do they go for now? Like probably over 100 plus.
I think it's kind of sad, but since he died, like they've got heaps more value in them.
Yeah.
But like, that was the kind of stuff we were buying to bring home and sell and buy for us.
Yeah.
But I think I was good at buying stuff, but I could never foresee what the prices were. I'm not going to pretend I knew the prices were going to get as extreme they were.
Yeah.
And I'd sold a lot of that stuff before prices got crazy.
Before, because we're talking about 2015 here. So even when we started.
Way, the round 2 show hadn't even been run yet. Everything changed. I think for a lot of younger guys, a lot of stuff changed. They might have been selling a thing here, but soon as that round 2 show got crazy, and even for me, like it just elevated everything.
Yeah, for everyone that doesn't know, Round 2 is a store in, they got multiple stores in the US. They started a series. You can go watch it on YouTube, but it's where Sean Weatherspoon's most famous from. It's his business along with his partners. Yeah.
So like that started that show I think started in late 2016.
Yeah. Because they were 5 years deep into their business already from that.
Yeah.
So they're already selling vintage before vintage was a thing.
Like super cool, which I think more had to do with like, I guess they did sneakers, since sneakers is like, kind of feel like my own story is like sneakers pulled him into also then selling cool clothes.
Yeah.
And then I think the clothes they had more of attraction to the clothes and that got bigger.
And then they have a vintage store now.
Yeah. They have a few stores now.
Yeah. So what happened from
So
say 2015 to 2018 or 17 when we first met.
Yeah, so 2015 we come back from our first trip to the States. We bought heaps of stuff. I just sat on the stuff. I was buying heaps. I wasn't selling anything at that stage. So we come home late 2015. I start my Instagram.
Yeah.
So I start putting a couple of things on. I sold a few things on there. And then early 2016, I do my first ever market in Brunswick where we live.
Yeah.
So I was the only person in the market. It was like some random market, in like a car park. It was good, but I was the only person selling like vintage or anything close to that.
Was that Brunswick market, and then it turned to Fitzroy maybe? Because I remember we went to used to do a Brunswick market. I'm pretty sure.
I think look, I don't remember what the name of the market was.
Or was it something like real random or something like that?
I think so. Yeah. It was. It's across the road from like the Brunswick Baths. There's a car park in there, and like they used to do it like once every 3 months, and I did that a couple of times in that there. So that was like my first ever market, like in 2016. Even though I'd been selling a little bit online, and then like the markets just slowly started happening from there. But the 91 vintage, I guess, is like another big point in time.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah.
So you're pretty much building everything from 2015. You're selling all your stuff. You're sitting on a lot of it. You're building probably your business.
Because like everyone, I'd like to buy stuff,
and
but selling it was.
And you're selling on Instagram at the time.
Yeah, on Instagram. Actually, I did a little bit of eBay on earlier on. Like it was like nothing crazy.
Because they had no fee. Like the fees weren't crazy back then.
Yeah, but I think I just thought that was the easiest way to get my stuff seen.
Yeah.
Just because Instagram wasn't popping for shopping like that at the moment.
Yeah.
So I was like, how am I gonna, if I'm not going out every day to sell it, how am I gonna sell it online? So eBay made the most sense.
Yeah, and then it got a lot more eyes on eBay.
Yeah, so I did from like that 2016 through 2017. We also like bought and renovated a house, so things slowed a little bit in 2017. Yeah. And then the start of 2018 just like picked right back up, and that's when
vintage really started coming in.
Yeah, so vintage started to go crazy.
Because we started official vintage in 2018. So then from there it's just been on an upwards build pretty much. Yeah, that's only getting more popular now, which is crazy.
I think 2018 was like the biggest explosion of like vintage clothing in Australia. Like that year was nuts because people wanted anything and everything.
Yeah, and they couldn't get it.
And
there was only, us. There's only a few companies.
And even some of the other sellers, the original sellers from that 91 vintage market, there was only like 9 sellers. Yeah. But even half those guys were just selling like op shop shit. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't what you know today is vintage.
Yeah. They were just selling all their op shop finds over the 3 months that they were.
Yeah. I remember after I did that first 91 vintage market and I had like 2 racks of stuff and I said to my wife, I'm like, I'm going to double down hard for the next market. Yeah. And I took a chance and I bought like piles of Champion jumpers. I was buying
back when Champion was popping. Tommy Hilfiger was popping. One market
I sold 57 Champion jumpers.
Yeah. Don't rely on too much of one thing sometimes, eh?
And I just all I did was buy Champion and embroidered Nike jumpers. And that stage I was pretty early on. Lucky, I was very lucky early on that. I mean, I didn't even make the type of money that they sell for now, but I sold
enough.
Heaps of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I fell in love with buying long sleeve stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the dudes, as 2018 progressed, then a lot of the t-shirt stuff become pretty big.
Yeah.
And I kind of never played in that game because I always saw there was a lot of dudes trying to like do the t-shirt stuff.
Yeah.
And I really want to specialize in selling like jumpers and jackets.
Sweaters and jackets.
Yeah. And to be absolutely honest, the way I was buying stuff, I was paying the same amount of money for a t-shirt than I was for a jumper or a jacket.
Yeah.
And I could charge more.
Would have been high, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, it just came down to...
went up.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so that's like... So yeah, pretty much you were just doing all the markets from 2018 onwards.
Yeah, up until even June. Recently. Yeah, up until we just haven't had another one.
Yeah, right? Do you want to talk about the pop-up that we did?
So the end of 2009... So in 2019... Of course, we were looking for ways to do more. So in July of 2019, we did a weekend. I don't know if you remember that, in that art studio on Sydney Road.
Yeah, we did a sort of small pop-up.
We did a small pop-up, for 2 days, and that went really well. So then I was like trying to find another way to like keep growing that. and we did a 2-week pop-up between me, you and Stu and Ali from What Comes Around Vintage. And like that was the first time of like me experience of like what potentially a store could be.
Yeah.
I thought we did it in like the 2 weeks before Christmas, and I thought, oh, that'd be a good idea, people at Christmas shopping. Now that I look back at it, probably wasn't the best time to be doing a pop-up.
Because people it's
people
more,
were shopping for Christmas and were too worried about that.
They're closed. But like we could have done it like 2 months before that and it would have popped, I reckon.
Yeah. And you know what? It was like I didn't make like millions of dollars, but it was worth doing it, and I learnt a lot. And it's funny because I remember from all those times of sitting around in the store, like between me, Ali, and even sometimes with Stu, we were talking about like, what can we do next?
Yeah.
Because it was like, you know, no one knew about COVID. So it was like...
COVID was just like a thing happening in China at that time.
And
we were talking about it, we were like, oh, no, it's not gonna hit Australia.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't even know if it was, but maybe. But Stu'd bring up the ideas like, yo, we should do a pop-up in New Zealand. Or like,
true.
Even just threw that as a joke, and we're like, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
And he was, and like that was something like, yeah, we should actively plan that, because I was like, we can just take the shit over in our suitcases.
Yeah, literally. Like, bring 2 suitcases.
Yeah, and then just find somewhere. So we started to make, you know, like everyone, all these other plans. And I felt like that the momentum built off from like, oh, I could possibly open a store like after doing these 2 weeks.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about you and Ali?
Yeah. So I was
potential store.
Yeah, so I was mentioning to you before that like after me and Ali did that, we then go into the new year of 2020, and me and Ali start to talk about, hey, maybe we can open a store. And we're both thinking like, if we can find the right place, we can share a store. We can probably cover enough money on sales where we're going to cover all our costs. Maybe we won't make a whole lot of profit.
Yeah.
But I knew we could make it work in terms of covering our cost.
Yeah, covering your costs and being
open.
Happy. Yeah, being happy as well.
Happy, yeah. Right? So in 2000 and by that stage, right before COVID, I'd quit my full-time job, and I was like, I was done with it. I worked in corporate, and I was like, all right, I can like put money in my pocket doing the vintage on the side, regardless if it was in a store or a market, but I was getting paid, and I can figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah. So me and Ali like, let's look at this store thing. We apply for 3 stores. The first store comes back the week before COVID, and they knocked us back. And it was like, I was so pissed at the moment, but it was like because I think 10 days later we go into lockdown. Yeah. And I mean, everyone knows how that goes. I'm not going to go through that. But
two-year lockdown.
Yeah, it would have been, I think, an 18th or 24-month lease we would have signed. Yeah. Like literally 10 days. And there would have been no way out of it. Yeah. So we would have been stuck dealing with that.
And the government wasn't helping that much at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just like, even with help, it's still like, what's going to happen? Nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's it. So, and you've only just started a store. But luckily that didn't all happen.
Yeah, we were so lucky that didn't happen. I mean, those dudes did follow up with me, as I said to you before, like straight out, as soon as we got out of lockdown, they rang me again. They're like, hey, you still interested in that store? And I'm like, no, thank you. No, I'm not interested. So
then from there, you've just been selling on Depop and other platforms, is that right?
Yeah, so as we first went into lockdown, like I got worried, like I'm sure everyone else did. And if you were lucky enough on my Depop page, I just started fire sailing everything. I was like, I need to get rid of it. Because I'm like, at that stage, I didn't know, I don't want to say who my wife works for, but she works for big retail companies. And we weren't sure what was even going to happen with her job. Like nobody, our first few months, no one knew what was going to happen.
So we sold all our rap tees like in the first week of that COVID.
And I know you love to talk about that on this podcast. Yeah. You always like it breaks your heart. But
breaks my heart, man.
But you did the right thing, right?
Yeah, you had to, because you didn't know if money was going to come in or not.
Because like you,
because the government weren't even saying anything at that point. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to give like rent reductions and stuff."
To be honest, like I hate to be the other side of that. I just don't think nobody knew what was going on, right?
It was just like. But we've never been through a pandemic before to even know.
The world has never shut down. The whole world never shut down like it did. And I hope it never does it again.
Nah. So, I don't think it will. No way.
Like, I have listened to a few podcasts. I always laugh when you bring that up.
Every podcast bring it up. I remember that time when I had 20 rap tees, man.
But you know what? You sold it. You did the right thing. You cashed out on it.
You had to, man.
You bought them at a good price, I'm sure. And like I did too. I was like, yeah, I need to fire sale this stuff. I don't want to get stuck with it.
Yeah.
I was like, I had money, but I'm like, I was worried about money.
Then it's like, oh, I get that cash influx as well, and then we're safe for at least
however long, right?
the 2 weeks for hopefully the government figure out what the fuck.
Like my in-laws live on a farm. I'm like, oh, maybe I got to go live on a farm and leave Melbourne. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was like so confused, right? But
so you started selling all your shit?
Yeah, I started selling everything. Like I was already selling on Depop. I used to use Depop as like a way to offload my shit stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was like...
And you're selling your good stuff at the markets?
Selling the good stuff at the market, putting some stuff on Instagram. Never focused too heavy on that, but the markets always sold well. And I love the markets. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to try and do more on Depop. I started to list more on Depop, not at the like full reduced stuff because I had better stuff I didn't want to reduce. And it started to sell. And then as everyone kind of went through that like mid 2020 to like, mid 2022 of like e-com going crazy. And like then, everyone and their dog just spent money online, and I was lucky to be able to ride that wave as best as I could. And I sold a lot of stuff out of our little 3-bedroom house. And as I was telling you before, I was too cheap to even want to buy a printer. And I was handwriting, like maybe not a lot for someone, but for me, because I'm just like as lazy, it was like, I think one day I did like 37 orders and I was like, had to sit there and handwrite them. And I think...
when you said that today, it like full brought back memories from when me and Stu first started, and we had to do like 50 orders and we're handwriting them all as well. And
that's not even including the ones you got to rewrite because my handwriting was like so terrible, right?
Or you just like, you start writing your own address because you're just like so whacked out and like,
And then my wife was like, why don't you at least get the return label printed for the back? I'm like, that's a great idea.
That's what we started doing. We'll just put a return label on and we'll just write them all out. And then now, like, you realize how much time it saves you.
And like
getting one of those phone, like $80 printers.
Yeah, I just went in the office with about $80 printer. It was the best $80 I ever spent. And like then I was just,
to everyone that has a small business,
buy a printer from the start. Even if you don't ever use it for the business, I use it for labeling. I use it for so much crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Depop took off for me like crazy. One day in the mail, I get this handwritten letter from the head of Depop Australia, like, "Hey, we're watching your store. You're doing really good.
You're one of the top sellers or something."
Yeah, I was like one of the top sellers in Australia at the time, and I knew what I was doing. And they're like, "Hey, keep working. You can be officially a top seller." And I'm like, I don't care. So then at some point, I get an email from them. And the way they work is you had to do these minimum three consecutive months of sales to get a check and be a top seller. And I'd smashed what you need to do in the 3 months in the first month. So they emailed me and they're like, "Hey, just so you know, at the end of the 3rd month, we're going to give you the check." I'm like, "Why can't you do it now?" They're like, "Because our rules state we have to wait 3 months." So I get in there, I smash it. When I become a top seller on Depop, there's only, I think, 87 other top in Australia. Yeah. And I think,
huge.
Yeah, and I think I was pretty much the top or vintage. In the top 3 one, for vintage. Well, for anything on Depop, with a million, Depop had 1 million active Australian users at the time. Yeah. So Depop was really good for me. Like, it probably wasn't the best like long term because I didn't get the like control of data and all the other like bits and pieces I would want for like the back end of it because they own all that IP and they're not going to give that up, which is understandable. But listing on Depop just became like really good, and I would literally list 6 items a night before we had dinner at like 7 o'clock every night, Monday or every night but Saturday, so 6 nights a week, and most of that stuff would sell out like that night.
They're crazy. Especially if you're a top seller, they're probably pushing your stuff as well.
Do you know, to be honest, like I know I just mentioned the top seller, but it did shit.
So it didn't even push your post out?
Maybe. I don't know that. They didn't tell me that, but
surely
I got a check.
The algorithms would have done something.
Yeah, I got like the check near my name, which I no longer have because you have to keep these ridiculous sales numbers up to keep the check. I'm like, and when I lost the check, it didn't change my sales, so I don't think so.
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, so the Depop went nuts, and then I met with Depop Australia a couple of times, like by video conference, and they talked to me, which was really cool. They at one stage, like their like head of operations in Australia and someone else reached out to me. They wanted to meet with me to like just ask my opinion on Depop, and what I thought could be better, and I just like let loose on like telling everything that I thought was wrong with it, and they were like really cool.
When we used to use Depop back in the day, I could have like named it's just a slow app. That's pretty much it. They just need to improve it.
It worked really well for the way I needed it to work, like during COVID. Because again, like
it's like a Gumtree or something, but it's just slow because there's too many users. Like uploading it, it's like super easy.
Yep.
And then it's just got like too many users.
I've never bought anything from Depop.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of time searching and listening.
That's what I got out of when we first started from Depop. But maybe they probably improved it now. It's been for like 4 years.
I think because they had so much traffic during COVID that like it was forced to like
improve it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you would consider it perfect in any way, but it worked. And again, I was just real hesitant of outlying time and money for a website. Yeah, which I probably should have done because it make more sense in the long run.
Now you would have had the big customer base.
Yeah,
which is like you would have had that customer base over COVID and stuff.
I mean, I found a way to collect people's email addresses, which is like, leads are like the most important thing because you can target them in ads or email them. Yeah. And because all transactions are through PayPal, it would come with them. And it's not the most right way to get a person's email address, but like I had a growing list of email addresses I was collecting.
So pretty much through that time, through COVID or whatever, you're just selling on Depop and you're getting into you're getting into sort of digital marketing and that sort of stuff.
So like as we go through like I'm going to say like the e-com boom in 2020, and I've always had an interest in tech and like digital marketing. I want to know more about it, and I've got like a really close friend of mine who's like just he's just a digital genius. I know he'll see this, so like he's beyond smart. Yeah, like I don't know any way to put it, and he's been the one like because I'm just me and like always don't want to do like so hard to do anything. He's like pushing me, go and do a course, just do a course. I'll help you. And his help is worth so much money to like
they sort of like mentor.
Yeah, 100%. He mentors me. So I finally agree to doing this course. Like he had to force me to do a course to benefit me in 2020 last year. Yeah. The middle of like last year. And I go and do this course for like 3 months, and I do the course, I pay like 4 G's for it. It was okay. It was like
do you learn that content's key pretty much? Like all the content that you're producing?
Yeah, it was like I learned, so it was like 3 months and it crossed like all of digital marketing. Yeah. So from like search, paid, social,
SEO,
everything, right? Yeah. Not in too much depth. Yeah. But what I learned when I come out of it is like I touched on all these topics, but I still need to dive deeper into like specialize into maybe something.
Yeah. So it's like SEO, you need to be doing a lot more SEO stuff because it is like super complex. It doesn't take like the 3 months that you're saying you'd be good at probably one thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Out of the task or the topics that you went through.
Yeah, it's like just imagine if you had a job in a big company and you worked there for 3 months, and every week I do 3-hour classes twice a week online because it was COVID. And so imagine if you just went into your company and did something new twice a week for 3 hours, 3 months. You would do lots of things, but you would necessarily be, I wouldn't assume you'd be any good at something. Yeah. You have to dive into it.
It's pretty much everything. It's like with vintage, I talk about it a lot on this podcast. It's like you got to put time in. You got to put your like 20, 30 hours into researching your tags. You got to be in the trenches, man. Like looking at the clothes, or like even just looking at Depop and seeing all the tags. But that's a good tag, or like, you know what I mean, or on eBay.
Yeah, you're.
Why is that more expensive than say this one?
Knowledge is key, right?
Knowledge is key.
And I always had this thing where like if someone came up to me with like a vintage item and they were like, hey, what is this worth? Like, there's the money side of me is like, just lowball it. Yeah. But if you honestly ask me what it's worth, I'll tell you to the best of my knowledge what it's worth. But if you come to me and you're like, hey, do you want to buy this for $10 and I know it's $1,000 item, I'm going to pay the $10 right? Because you told me the price.
Yeah, that's
But it's like, that's where it's like only having a little bit more knowledge if it's in vintage or cars or housing market. Like, you can do good, right? So
that's it. It's like with anything you do in life, or like educate yourself and spend time on it.
Yeah, so I did the course. I come out of there. My let's call him my mentor.
Yeah, your mentor.
He's helping me heaps. Still is to today. Helps me heaps. Sat with me. We would be on video calls for hours, just going through stuff.
Yeah.
Like he runs his own business, works with other people. Still spend hours with me, and then he put me on to this lady had a sustainable and ethical jewelry company.
Yeah. So this is the freelancing gig.
Yeah, it's when the freelancing started. So I got put onto her, and we pretty much we pulled her site apart, dissected it, went through it all, redesigned, and relaunched her business.
Yeah. So even we were talking about it before. It's like on your website, people are only on there for 10 to 15 seconds. So you got to optimize for that.
Yeah, but you got to take a step back from that.
Yeah,
people got to find your website first, right?
Yeah. But that's just like even to take steps. Say once you get people to your website, you got to realize,
it's got to be optimized.
Yeah, it's got to be optimized for people, and you'd be like, you click here, and it's going to be like bring you to the products that you want to see.
So I want to learn about like digging through Google Analytics. So if people don't know that, it's like a backend plugin, free, put on your website, give you all this information. If you have a website, you 100% need to be running Google Analytics.
Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah. So for this business I was working with, that I would go through, and it was really interesting, right? So I would talk to this lady about her business. I'm like, who's your customer and what is your average sale price?
Yeah.
So she would be like, our customer are like ladies between this and this age. And
they give you a demographic of what it...
Yeah.
What.
And our average cart size is like $130, right?
Yeah.
But really then when I dug through her analytics, men were her biggest customers that were buying as gifts. We figured out
for females,
for female, and the average cart size was $80.
Yeah.
So like completely different. This isn't like a shot at her. It's just like she didn't understand about her own business and her own customer. Or when we talked about men as a potential customer before I did the deep dive into her analytics, she was like, "Oh, men don't buy from me."
Yeah,
but
she's already like closed mind about it.
Yeah,
but it's all in the numbers. You can see it. Like numbers don't lie.
Yeah, and so it was like that was just one small thing. You can find out heaps of other stuff, right?
But you can be like, oh yeah, so actually this area you're super popular. Like in Queensland you're more popular than Melbourne.
100%.
So let's start like pushing ads out to maybe Queensland or New Zealand.
That's exactly. What I mean? Or like Google Analytics too will tell you stuff like what else your customer is interested in. So like if it's vintage clothing, it will tell you about other interests your customers have. So it might be like sporting goods or like cars, right? So then if you have content, if you need to produce content, you can kind of cross that content. It doesn't all have to be vintage. You might do stuff that relates to vintage sports or vintage cars.
Well, you got to think about it. There's like motorbikes, Harleys, you can cross them over,
100%. So anyway, like I spent a bunch of time learning a heap, and I mean, like I've still barely scraped.
Yeah, scraped. It's a lot of work, all that digital marketing stuff.
Yeah,
and I've been learning over the last 4 years, and it's still like only just hit the surface. I
think a lot of people don't even know like the type of so a keyword is like words people use to search in Google for like how your website may be found, and like I'm positive there's a lot of websites out there that still don't know like what they rank for, and that's like you got to understand what you're ranking for, and how you're creating content to rank for that.
Because people got to get to your website, you got to get people to your website, and like to get people to your website, you need to be ranked in the first page at least.
Yeah,
or number one, pretty much.
Like I'm not even going to tend to like remember the stat, but like it's some crazy stat of the number of like users who click from page 1 to 2, like that fall off from Google. Yeah. But if you're not on the first page, like they're not even like going to the second
most
page.
Most people wouldn't even scroll down to the end. Like that's how
you're
lazy.
100%.
That's what TikTok's doing. Like attention spans, like crazy. Like attention span is like people like will go down halfway through the thing because their attention span's so small.
Do you? I mean, you don't have to talk about it here, but have you seen your average session times increase like as you've spent more time on the website? Like are people spending more time on your website than they did 2 years ago or even a year ago?
Yeah, I think so. Just because we've got a lot more items on the website, so people are more willing to like look through it because they might be like, oh, yeah, I want a sports team tee. Then they look through the sizes. And then they'll be like, oh, I need also like a Nike tee. So obviously they're on the website for a lot longer than normal.
It's like
And we target our ads to the right people, so people are going to come on.
Right.
You know what I mean? People are going to come on and stay on the website.
And it's the ads game is like completely something like in itself, right?
Yeah.
So I've dabbled.
So there's organic content, which is just normal posting, and then the ads are completely different. So yeah, like your business is like separated into the two.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused like with ads is that they assume that, oh, I'm going to run an ad, I'm going to make a return on my money.
Yeah.
It's not really true. I mean, the ads just give you the opportunity to push out to a bigger audience and like potentially more people who might want to buy
That's
those
right.
items.
Sweet. Shall we wrap it up there?
Cool.
That was a pretty good podcast. Do you want to say one good thing that you're looking forward to this month?
What am I looking forward to this month? I'll say it sneaks into June. We're going back to Queensland for a little trip. My wife works really hard, so we're going to get some time away. And actually, we were there in February, and we found some really cool little secondhand shops. I picked up some starter jackets for like $10 each.
Still working on holiday, man.
I'd never stop, man.
Sweet. Well, thanks for hopping on. Make sure you like, subscribe. But yeah, that was a good conversation.
Cheers, man.
Till next time.